One message from a contact named Jae Hyung made my blood run cold. It read, "Hyung, I can't do this anymore. I can't breathe. Please just let me go. I'm begging you." That was the message that broke me. Jae Hyung, the leader of Eclipse, the golden boy of K-pop, the one with the killer smile and the voice of an angel. And he was begging to be let go. From what? The group? His contract? His life? The ambiguity was the most terrifying part. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the suffocating silence. I felt sick. This was a secret so monumental, so devastating, that it could shatter careers, ruin lives, and break the hearts of millions of fans. And it was sitting in my hand on a phone that wasn't mine. But to fully understand the weight of that moment, the sheer, crushing gravity of what I had discovered, we need to go back. Back to before the swapped phones, before the secrets, before my life became entangled with the dark side of the K-pop dream. We need to go back to the beginning. My name is Hazel, and until a few weeks ago, my life was simple, predictable even. I worked as an assistant manager at a popular cafe in Hongdae, the heart of Seoul's youth culture. My days were a blur of caffeine, steamed milk, and the occasional awkward conversation with a tourist who couldn't pronounce gomawo. I was a creature of habit. I had my favorite spot on the subway, my go-to lunch order, and a small circle of friends I'd known since university. My biggest drama was usually deciding whether to watch a new K-drama or rewatch an old classic. I was content, or so I thought. The cafe was a hotspot for everyone from university students to aspiring artists, and occasionally, we'd get a visit from someone famous, usually hiding behind a mask and a baseball cap. It was always a little thrill, a brief brush with the world of celebrity that felt a million miles away from my own. I never thought much of it. They were just people who needed their coffee, like everyone else. The day it all started was a Tuesday. It was raining, one of those relentless summer monsoons that turns the city into a glistening, chaotic mess. The cafe was packed, every seat was taken, and the line for coffee snaked all the way to the door. I was in the zone, a whirlwind of activity, taking orders, frothing milk, and trying not to spill coffee on myself. It was organized chaos, the kind of rush that leaves you exhausted but satisfied at the end of the day. That's when he came in. He was a man in his late 30s, dressed in a sharp suit that was slightly dampened by the rain. He looked frazzled, his hair a mess, and he was barking into his phone, his voice a low, urgent growl. He exuded an aura of stress, a stark contrast to the relaxed vibe of the cafe. He ordered a black Americano, his eyes darting around impatiently as if he expected the world to stop for him. I remember thinking he looked like a man on the verge of a breakdown. He paid with a credit card, his hand trembling slightly as he tapped it on the reader. He snatched the receipt and his phone from the counter, which was identical to mine, a standard black smartphone in a plain black case. In the chaos of the moment, with a dozen other orders to fulfill and the constant hiss of the espresso machine in my ears, I didn't notice a thing. He grabbed his coffee the second it was ready and was out the door, disappearing back into the rain-soaked streets of Seoul. I took a deep breath, wiped down the counter, and moved on to the next customer. I had no idea that in that fleeting, insignificant interaction, my life had taken a sharp, irreversible turn. It wasn't until my shift ended, hours later, that I realized something was wrong. I was on the subway, heading home, my body aching from a long day on my feet. I pulled out my phone to listen to some music, but it wouldn't unlock. My fingerprint wasn't working. I tried my passcode. Denied. A flicker of annoyance turned into a knot of confusion. I tried again. Nothing. That's when I really looked at the phone. The wallpaper was different. Instead of my goofy picture of my cat, it was a sleek, professional-looking logo for a group I vaguely recognized. Eclipse. My blood ran cold. I fumbled in my bag, my heart pounding, and pulled out my wallet. My ID was there, my keys were there, but my phone was gone, and in my hand I was holding a stranger's, the stressed-out man from the cafe. My first instinct was panic. My whole life was on that phone. My contacts, my photos, my banking apps. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. I had to get it back. But how? I didn't know his name, his number, anything about him. I was about to get off at the next station and head back to the cafe when the screen lit up with a notification. It was a message from someone named Seo Jun. It read, Hyung, the schedule for tomorrow is a mess. The stylists are double booked, and the van has a flat tire. Call me A.S.A.P. Hyung. The Korean word for older brother used by men. And stylists? Van? A cold, dawning realization began to creep over me. I scrolled through the notifications, my curiosity overriding my panic. There were dozens of them. Messages from Eclipse vocal coach, choreographer Kim, and a group chat simply titled Eclipse Management. My jaw dropped. Eclipse. One of the biggest K-pop groups in the world. And this phone? It belonged to their manager. For a moment, I just stared at the screen, the reality of the situation slowly sinking in. I, Hazel, the quiet cafe worker, was holding the key to the inner workings of a global phenomenon. My initial plan to rush back to the cafe and wait for him to return seemed inadequate. This was bigger than a simple lost phone. That night, I couldn't sleep. The phone was a siren, calling to me from my bedside table. I told myself it was wrong, a complete invasion of privacy, but my curiosity was a roaring fire. What was it really like behind the scenes? Were the idols as perfect as they seemed? What secrets did this phone hold? With a trembling hand, I picked it up. The manager, in his haste, hadn't set a short lock time. The phone was still open. I took a deep breath and started scrolling. At first, it was mundane. Schedules, budgets, meeting reminders. But then I found the group chats. I saw a message from Minjun, the main dancer, a boy famous for his sharp, powerful moves. He had sent a link to a fan comment that criticized his facial expressions. Hyung, do you think they're right? Do I look bored on stage? The manager, Mr. Kang, had replied with a curt, You looked fine. Just focus on the next schedule. But a few minutes later, Minjun sent a private message. Seriously, though, I practiced my expressions for 6 hours yesterday. Is it not enough? What else can I do? It was heartbreaking. Then there was Jin, the maknae, the youngest. His public persona was all bright smiles and playful energy. But on this phone, I found a hidden folder of photos of him with a girl, a trainee from another company. Their secret chat was full of whispered promises and heart emojis. I miss you, he'd written. Let's try to meet at the convenience store by the river again. I'll wear the black mask. A romance that, if discovered, would unleash a firestorm of scandal. I dug deeper and found a folder of audio files. They were demo tracks, raw and unproduced. The singer's voice was soulful and tinged with a beautiful melancholy. It was Hanul, the group's quiet sub-vocalist, who rarely got more than a few lines per song. The lyrics were poetic and introspective, about feeling lost in the spotlight. In a chat with a friend from his hometown, Hanul had written, CEO Yang rejected all my songs again. He said they're too dark for Eclipse's image, and that I should just focus on my diet. Sometimes I feel like I'm just a mannequin they dress up. The guilt was a physical weight. The next day at work, I was a ghost. My best friend and coworker, Sora, a die-hard Eclipse fan, a solar as they were called, bounced over to me. Did you see? Jin posted a new selka. He's so cute, she gushed. I saw the picture of the smiling boy and felt a bizarre, protective pang. I knew that just hours before that photo was taken, he had been texting his secret girlfriend, worried that they were being too reckless. Yeah, cute, I mumbled. What's with you today? Sora asked, her brow furrowed. You seem a million miles away. Just tired, I lied. How could I explain that I was drowning in the secrets of the very group she worshipped? That the perfect idols she adored were just insecure, lonely boys trying to survive an impossible system? That night, my morbid curiosity won again. I found an email thread about the group's diet plan for an upcoming music video. 800 calories a day, mostly consisting of chicken breast and salad, coupled with 6 to 8 hours of intense dance practice. I saw a report from a doctor attached, flagging Jin's dangerously low body fat percentage and Minjun's vitamin deficiencies. The manager had forwarded this to the CEO with a note. Concerns from the doctor. The CEO's reply was chillingly pragmatic. They need to have visible abs for the concept. Keep them camera ready. We can let them eat after the shoot. Then I found the contracts, scans of the official documents, tucked away in a password-protected file. The password was pathetically simple: Eclipse Debut 2018. The so-called slave contracts were real. 7 years. Any debt incurred during their trainee days, lessons, housing, food, was to be paid back from their earnings, which were a minuscule percentage of the group's total revenue. They had no control over their own social media, their personal schedules, or even their hair color. It was a gilded cage. My paranoia began to grow. Every time my own phone buzzed, I jumped. I started keeping Mr. Kang's phone wrapped in a scarf at the bottom of my laundry basket. One evening, as I was scrolling through it, my own phone rang. It was Sora. I answered, trying to sound normal, while frantically dimming the screen of the other phone. "Hey, what you doing?" she asked cheerfully. "Oh, nothing. Just watching TV," I lied, my heart hammering. "Liar! I can hear you tapping on a screen. Are you playing that game again? Listen, I'm right outside your building. Let me in. I brought chicken." Panic seized me. "No, my place is a mess. I'm not feeling well. Maybe tomorrow?" My voice was unnaturally high. I shoved Mr. Kang's phone deep under my mattress. There was a pause. "Hazel, are you okay?" Sora's voice was laced with concern. I managed to convince her I just had a headache. But after I hung up, I leaned against my door, breathing heavily. This was unsustainable. The breaking point came 2 nights later. I was staring at the phone when its screen suddenly went black, then lit up with a map. A notification popped up. "Mr. Kang's phone has been located." A pin, pulsing ominously, was hovering directly over my apartment building. He was using a Find My Phone app. I gasped, my blood turning to ice. I fumbled with the device, my mind racing. I dove into the settings, my fingers flying across the screen, and managed to turn off the location services just as I heard the faint sound of a car pulling up outside my window. I peeked through the blinds and saw a black van, the kind idols use, idling on the street below. I didn't see anyone get out, but I knew. He was close. After a few tense minutes, the van drove away. I sank to the floor, shaking. He knew the general area, now. It was only a matter of time. I couldn't hide anymore. And that's when I found it. The conversation that made everything else pale in comparison. The one that brought me to my knees. It was in a private chat between Mr. Kang and CEO Yang. They were talking about Jae-hyung. He had been struggling with severe depression and anxiety for months, a fact that had been ruthlessly hidden from the public. He had begged for a break, for therapy, for help. The CEO's response was a single, brutal sentence. "A broken product is a useless product. We have a comeback in 3 months. Fix him or replace him. Replace him." Like he was a faulty machine part, not a human being. Mr. Kang's replies were a desperate attempt to reason with him, to advocate for Jae-hyung. But the CEO was unmovable. And then, the final message from Jae-hyung to his manager. "Hyung, I can't do this anymore. I can't breathe. Please, just let me go. I'm begging you." My world tilted on its axis. This wasn't just about unfair contracts or forbidden love. This was about a life hanging in the balance. The grenade in my hand was ticking. And I knew I couldn't just stand by and watch it explode. I had to do something. My hands, still trembling, typed a message. Not on the manager's phone, but on my own, which I had retrieved from the cafe's lost and found. I found Mr. Kang's number in his own contacts list and sent him a simple, direct message. "I have your phone. We need to talk. Meet me at the cafe in 1 hour. Come alone." The response was almost instantaneous. "Who is this? How did you get this number?" "The person who knows everything," I replied, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and resolve. An hour later, I was back at the cafe. It was late, and the place was empty, save for my boss, who had agreed to let me stay after closing. I sat at a small table in the corner, the manager's phone in front of me. He arrived exactly on time. He looked even more stressed than before, his face pale and drawn. He saw me, and his eyes widened in recognition. "You're the girl from the cafe," he said, his voice a low growl. "And you're the man who's been living a nightmare," I replied, my voice surprisingly steady. He flinched, as if I had struck him. He sank into the chair opposite me, his shoulders slumping in defeat. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "I want to understand," I said, pushing the phone across the table towards him. "I want to know how you can let this happen." He stared at the phone, then at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of shame, frustration, and a surprising amount of pain. "You think I want this?" he said, his voice cracking. "You think I enjoy watching these kids suffer? They're like my own brothers. I was a trainee once, just like them. I know what it's like." He buried his face in his hands. "I try," he whispered. "I fight for them. But the company, the industry, it's a monster. Years ago, I managed a solo artist, a brilliant girl named Minhee. A voice like you wouldn't believe. The company wanted to push a sexy concept on her she was uncomfortable with. She was only 17. I fought for her. I went to the board. They fired me, and they shelved her. They sued her for breach of contract, and she ended up with a mountain of debt. She works in a convenience store now. They ruined her career because I tried to do the right thing. If I get fired now, they'll just replace me with some heartless suit who will push these boys even harder. At least with me here, I can absorb some of the blows. I can try to shield them. I'm trapped. We're all trapped." His words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. He wasn't a villain. He was a victim. "What about Jae-hyung?" I asked softly. "What are you going to do?" He looked up, his eyes red-rimmed and full of despair. "I don't know," he confessed. "I've been trying to get him help. Secretly. But the CEO? He's threatening to sue him for breach of contract if he goes on hiatus. It would ruin him, financially and professionally. He'd be blacklisted." We sat in silence. "There has to be a way," I said. "A way to get the truth out without naming them. To start a fire, not a witch hunt." And that's when an idea, a crazy, desperate, and potentially disastrous idea, began to form in my mind. "We leak it," I said. "Not everything. Not the names, not the company. We leak the patterns, the contracts, the diet plans, the mental health crisis. We give it to a real journalist, someone who will protect their sources. We create a public outcry so big that the company has to respond." For the first time, a flicker of something other than despair appeared in Mr. Kang's eyes. It was a dangerous, terrifying hope. A few days later, I found myself in a place I never thought I'd be. A private waiting room, backstage, at a music show. Mr. Kang had arranged it. He said he wanted me to see them, to understand who I was fighting for. The room was a chaotic mess of clothes, makeup, and half-eaten snacks. And in the middle of it all, there they were. Eclipse. They were younger than I expected, their faces etched with a mixture of excitement and exhaustion. Then, Jae-hyung walked in. He looked fragile. The charismatic leader I had seen on screen was gone, replaced by a young man who looked like he was carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. He gave a weak smile to his bandmates, but his eyes were hollow, empty. Mr. Kang introduced me as a friend. Jae-hyung looked at me, a flicker of curiosity in his eyes. I gave him a small, reassuring smile. "I'm a fan," I said, my voice soft. "I just wanted to say, thank you. Your music, it's helped a lot of people, including me. Please, take care of yourself. Your health is the most important thing. We, your real fans, will wait for you, no matter what." A tear welled up in his eye. He nodded, a silent thank you. In that moment, he wasn't a K-pop idol. He was just a boy who needed to know that someone cared. That night, Mr. Kang and I met in a 24-hour internet cafe. We crafted an anonymous email using a burner account. We attached redacted documents, a sample contract with the names blacked out, a doctor's report with the patient information removed. We wrote a cover letter detailing the systemic issues, the pressure, the exploitation. We sent it to a reputable journalist known for her integrity. The article was published a week later. It sent shockwaves through the industry. The headline was stark. "The Dark Side of the Dream, K-pop's Mental Health Crisis and Exploitative Contracts." Fans were outraged. Hashtags trended worldwide. The public demanded change. The government launched an investigation into the practices of entertainment companies. It was the beginning of a revolution. The next day at the cafe, Sora was furious. "Can you believe this journalist?" she seethed, showing me the article on her phone. "She's just trying to tear Eclipse down. They work so hard. This is all lies." I stayed silent, my heart aching. In the midst of the chaos, Jae Hyung's company announced that he would be taking an indefinite hiatus to focus on his health. The public outcry had forced their hand. They had no choice but to let him go, to let him breathe. A few days after that announcement, Sora came to me, her eyes red. Maybe that article was true," she whispered, showing me a fan-translated post from an online forum where other anonymous staff members were corroborating the story. "We see what they want us to see. We never thought about what it costs them." Her anger had been replaced by a deep, painful empathy. It was a small shift, but it felt monumental. I never saw Mr. Kang again. But a few weeks later, a small, unmarked package arrived at the cafe. Inside was a simple silver bracelet and a note. "Thank you for everything. I still work at the cafe. My life is still, for the most part, simple. But something inside me has changed. I look at the world differently now. I see the cracks in the polished veneer of fame, the human cost of our entertainment." Months later, I was wiping down a table when I glanced at the TV in the corner. It was a news segment. There was Jae Hyung being interviewed. He looked healthy. The hollowness in his eyes was gone, replaced by a calm strength. He was talking about his new foundation, an organization dedicated to providing mental health resources for entertainers. "We have to be able to talk about these things," he was saying, his voice clear and confident. "We're not products, we're people." One evening, months after that, I saw a poster for a small charity concert in a little park in my neighborhood. The headliner was a solo artist, Jae Hyung. I went, standing at the back of the small crowd. He came on stage with just a guitar, looking happier and more at peace than I had ever seen him in any video. He sang his own songs, beautiful and raw. At the end of his set, his eyes scanned the crowd, and for a fleeting second, they met mine. He didn't know who I was, not really. But he smiled, a genuine, grateful smile, not for a fan, but for a fellow human being. And in that moment, I knew we had done the right thing. I never told anyone the full story. It's not my story to tell. It belongs to the boys who are still fighting for their dreams, to the manager who is still trying to protect them, and to the fans who are now demanding a better, healthier industry for the idols they love. I accidentally swapped phones with a K-pop idol's manager, and for a brief, terrifying moment, I knew everything. But in the end, it wasn't the secrets that mattered. It was the truth. The truth that behind every perfect smile, every flawless performance, there is a human being. And that's a truth worth fighting for.